Hi, y'all. How are you? My name's Christa Wessel, and I'm the early morning host at All Classical Portland, a station that I hope you're all aware of. If not, it's 89.9, and we're a community-funded station. And hi. This is Adam Trussell, who's the second bassoonist of the Oregon Symphony.
Hello. Thank you for coming.
You seem so far away. I'm going to move closer to you.
There's all these things.
Yeah. We did this chat yesterday, Adam and I, and it turned into a very strange half-hour chat on reeds, bassoon reeds.
Bassoon reeds that I make, yes. There's a big part of what I do.
I've never experienced anything like this before. The audience was so engaged, they were hollering questions about the reed-making process. I fully intended to spend the whole half an hour talking about this man and his interesting life and his path to the second bassoon chair at the Oregon Symphony. And people just wanted to hear about reeds.
Hey, I'm glad they wanted to hear about anything.
Because it's a big part of your life. So that chat last night was videotaped. It's now on the All Classical Portland website. If you want to find out about bassoon reeds, there's a fascinating half-hour discussion there at allclassical.org. We'll probably end up talking a little bit about it today, but
Okay.
I really want to focus on you. Is that all right?
That's fine. Yeah, whatever you want to know.
Really?
Really.
Okay. Well, Adam Trussell, how old did you tell me you are? 30?
I'm 35.
35.
Yep.
How young were you when you started playing bassoon?
I was 11 when I started playing bassoon.
Oh, that seems...
Yeah. Sixth grade.
Sixth grade, okay.
Yeah.
That's about average for a wind instrument then.
Yeah, I think so, especially for bassoon because it's bigger. But most students actually start on the flute or the clarinet, and then they graduate to the bassoon, where I started right away with the bassoon.
Because you saw that instrument and you
Saw that instrument, I had to have it. No, I'd gone to a really small private school for elementary school, and then I went to, and they didn't have a band program. In fact, there were only 11 kids in my combined 4th and 5th grade class, and my father was like, this is crazy. He needs to go to a normal public school, and so I did that for middle school, and we had all these new things to take advantage of, like band, and my mom signed me up for band, but not until December. You're supposed to sign up, at the beginning of the school year, September. And so I went up to the band room, and I walked up to the band director, Miss Jackman, Audrey Jackman, and she was an enthusiastic oboe player, another double reed player, and she said, I have good news and bad news. And the bad news is that we only have one instrument left for anybody. And the good news is, it's a bassoon. And I said, a what? I had no idea what it was. And so we put the bassoon together, and she let me look at it, and she said, you better go home and talk to your parents about this. Make sure, it's okay that this is what we do. This is how we proceed. And so I went home, and I said, Mom, I'm gonna play the... And I couldn't remember what it was called. And so I described it, I was like, I met this crazy lady, and we went into this closet that's supposed to have a lot of instruments and only had one. And we opened this case, and it was black, and there were a lot of parts, and my mom was like, it's probably clarinet. And I thought, yeah, I think it was the clarinet. So I went back to school thinking I was playing the clarinet, but it was the bassoon. And so I got the bassoon, which is a lot heavier and bigger and very different, but it was the one I ended up with, and it worked out. So I stuck with that.
You just stuck with it, but it worked out. I mean, was it one of those things when you finally figured out what it was you were playing and you sat down and learned how to play it, was it like, oh, I really like this thing? Or was it a period of not even knowing whether you liked it or not?
Well, I don't know. I think I was so happy to be a part of the band, yet be playing something that nobody else played. You know what I mean? Like, nobody could judge me because they had no idea what it was either. And so I kind of had my own thing, and it was helpful to kind of have. When did I learn about the grandfather? He's talking about Peter and the Wolf. Not for much longer. Not a lot longer. But it helped me actually, having something to kind of focus on, and made me feel very much like an individual, So and we took off. Like it went really well, and then I got a great teacher later that year, and it was really kind of a lifesaver actually for me to have the bassoon, when I went into this big school. I wasn't used to all this, so it was super
small
helpful.
Middle school, big high school.
Yeah, small elementary school, big middle school, yeah.
And so you had this thing that only you knew how to play.
Right. I was a part of this very elite club. In fact, I didn't know any other bassoon players.
And at what point did you start to think, this music thing's pretty cool. I think I might want to pursue this.
Well, it was later that school year, I think April actually. I had taken lessons with that oboe teacher, the band director, Audrey Jackman. And she kind of showed me everything she knew, and she thought, this kid needs lessons. And so she knew of this woman named Ardith Freeman, who taught at the University of Southern Maine. I'm from Portland, Maine. I don't know if we said that. But we have, yeah? All right. I love that. Okay, so we trekked on out to USM in Gorham. Have you been? Oh my God. Okay. And we went. Do you know Ardith? Do you know my teacher? Crazy lady, wonderful, wonderful person. But we went up to this woman's house, and she lived out in this very rural place, and went up to her attic. I remember my mom was with me, and we sat down with this woman. She was very serious, and she said, I'd be happy to teach you lessons, but you're going to take 10 lessons before you quit, if you're going to quit. And I was like very intimidated. And I thought, okay, yes, I'll do it. And that was it. That was the last time my mother came with me. I took the bus from Portland. There's a bus that wasn't far, from my house that took you to the other campus. And I went out there and I had lessons with this lady who was incredible. And she was a mentor, and just a wonderful.
Continues to be in your life in some way?
Yeah. She was my bassoon teacher through my senior year of high school. And then I've kept in touch with her ever since. She was just in Portland, Oregon, just a few months ago, actually, and she came over. I made her dinner. So, yeah.
There's something about the bond you make with maybe a band teacher or a private music teacher at that age, like a teenage years, I think.
Right.
It can be really foundational as you're going through all these swirling emotions and developmental phases. At least it was for me.
No, yeah, it was so helpful. I mean, to get all this attention from one person, and you're learning about the bassoon or whatever horn, French horn, but it was really helpful. I don't know how other kids make it through without that. Actually, I think to have, what do they call it? What do they call the people that you can get it's like a life coach kind of, but for somebody who's in middle school or high school.
I don't think all music teachers are like that, but it sounds like Ardith was that for you.
Oh yeah, she was
a friend and a mentor.
Full service teacher. She definitely took care of me, which was awesome.
And you teach now, and do you employ some of the same philosophies?
I do, actually. That was such a special kind of relationship for me that I wanted to. It was my goal to do the same thing, to play bassoon and to teach lessons, and so that's what I do. And funny enough, she's the second bassoon player in the Portland Symphony, which is in Portland, Maine, and I'm the second bassoon player in the Oregon Symphony in Portland, Oregon. So yeah, I almost am the same, opposite side of the country, but very similar job.
So where do you teach? At any of the schools or privately?
Yeah, I do it all, actually. I teach for University of Portland and Lewis and Clark and Concordia, actually, lots of colleges suddenly. And then I also teach out of my home privately, and I help out, actually, at Westland High School. Oop.
Oh my gosh.
I'm having a
cummerbund moment.
A malfunction. See,
wardrobe malfunction.
It's a wardrobe malfunction before your eyes. I'm going to reassemble myself. How embarrassing.
I might mention, too, that this talk is being videotaped as well.
Yes, that was caught on tape. And then I think it's going to be streamed, actually. So you can watch that happen again if you want to.
You were just listing all these places that you
Yeah.
teach, like 3 or 4 or 5 schools and privately. And do you know that you do have a full-time job?
I know. It's quite a bit. You know, my first job after graduating from Rice, where I got my master's degree, was in Omaha, Nebraska. And I never thought I'd live in Nebraska. I didn't want to live in Omaha, Nebraska, but I wanted to play bassoon full time. And it was a great place. You know, we're such snobs living on a coast. But it was an easy place to live. It was a wonderful job. And after being there for 6 years, I had a lot of teaching, which was really important to me. So when I got, my point is, when I got this job, I was really worried that I wouldn't have any of that teaching. And so when I first got here, I just pulled out all the stops. You know, I would do anything to start teaching again. And here I am, 4.5 years later, with just a little bit too much teaching.
Plus, if I'm not mistaken, you and I got to know each other a little bit earlier this week, and you said when you left Nebraska, you were so reluctant to leave some of those students behind.
Oh, yeah. Well, I almost didn't come to take the job, actually, because I was so happy with kind of teaching at the university and my tenured symphony job in Omaha, and I had a house. It was great. But I did. I decided my life was about adventures, and I was going to go for it. And I went, and I passed off all my students to my replacement, who was going to play in the symphony and also teach my students. But it turned out that the students didn't really like taking lessons with that teacher. And one of them called and said, hey, you know, it'd really help us out a lot if you just teach Dalton over Skype. And I thought, I don't know, we can try it. But I started teaching Dalton, and a month later, I was teaching 2 others that I'd had there, and then a few others, and then I was teaching 7 lessons privately on Skype. And then the university that I had been teaching for the next semester said, we hear you're teaching on Skype, would you teach the university students on Skype? So I'm still teaching kids in Omaha, actually, which is kind of,
So this is an awkward question.
Yeah.
But why do you think you're such an in-demand teacher? Why do you think the kids like you so much? What do you do for them?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I treat them, you know, on an equal level, and you know, you start to you make a bond, and then you go from there. I mean, there are not a lot of bassoon players in Omaha to take lessons with, and surprisingly, there are a lot here. But once you kind of make that bond, it's hard to replace it, whether it be good or bad. You know,
Is the bond?
Had I been a very different teacher, I think they still would have been used to that. You know, it's hard to replace that.
Is the bond built on just really great instruction, or do you really spend a lot of time talking about who the kid is and, you know, their dreams? And
No. I mean, I think it's just, you know, when you've got something regular in your life, you know, it becomes something comfortable, right? It's like when you get your hair cut, you know, even if they're not that good at it, it's hard to switch. You know, like you don't want to dump your hairdresser, right? Do you feel guilty when you dump your hairdresser, Christa?
Oh my God.
You do?
Yeah. I do, yeah.
Yeah, we do. So it's like that with your bassoon teacher. You don't want to dump your bassoon teacher. Am I wrong?
That's so funny. No, you're not wrong at all. Maybe it's time to pull out this instrument, because I'm guessing there are a couple of people that maybe don't even know which instrument the bassoon is or what it sounds like on its own, because, you know, oftentimes you're just part of the texture of the orchestra. Right. So he's going to put this thing together too, which is part of the fun. And you've got a mic stand here, so I don't have to narrate the whole thing.
Okay. Oh, question.
When did you make your first read?
Well,
The question was, when did he make his first read?
Yeah, reed making was kind of the thing that hooked me, actually. I with that first day when I went up to Artith's attic with my mom, and she threatened me with the 10-lesson deal, she also showed me all of these reeds that she'd been making. She had this workbench, you know, and all these tools, and really fascinating little things. And she tells the story still. She said, Adam, you looked at those and you said, I'm going to make 1 million reeds. And so I haven't made 1 million. I think I've made 2,000 or 3,000. But so that was it for me. Making reeds was the thing I really had to do. So we started doing that not much later, maybe 7th grade, 8th grade. And they weren't very good, but I made them anyway. And I kept making them. And it turns out making reeds is very hard.
You need to narrate this
process.
process.
So we're going to talk about the bassoon now. So the bassoon comes in a lot of pieces, and that's how it fits into this very stylish backpack. This is the boot, or the bass joint, as some people call it. This is the wing joint.
Well, you're lining that up very precisely.
Very, very, has to be precise. This is the long joint. And this is the bell. And that's the bassoon for you. And we've got one more piece here, which makes it so that you can play it, basically so you can get the sound to your mouth, get the bassoon in front of you. And that's called the bocal. And it's very fragile, and it's very specific. It's like a bow for a violin or cello, viola player, bass player. And that's the instrument. So it comes in all these pieces, and it packs up nicely.
And how does, okay, so you're blowing in here,
Yeah.
and the air does
Oh,
what?
yeah. So the air goes in here, and it goes down the right side of the bassoon, and down, there's a thing called a U-tube, actually, on the bottom here, which all my students love, the U-tube. And then it comes out the top. So when everything's closed, you get the lowest note on the bassoon, which is a low B flat.
The first thing that I notice about your bassoon versus other bassoons in your section is this is black.
Yes. This is an ebony finish to make it sound fancy. But it's a black bassoon, like a clarinet or an oboe. And I think that was probably the idea when they first started making them look that way, is that they would fit in, maybe, with the other wood ones.
I thought it was looked more rock and roll or something.
Yeah, I like it. I like the way it looks. Most wooden bassoons are brown or kind of reddish, or Karen's, the principal bassoon player, hers is kind of orange in color, or blonde, or something. And they'll have stripes and different colors, but about 5% of them are black. And I had to have a black one initially because my teacher, Ardith's, hers was black. And so I wanted to be like her. So this is actually my 3rd black bassoon. The first one I started on was plastic, and then it was black. And then the second one I had was brown. The 3rd bassoon I had, which I got to go to college, which was a professional model instrument made by Fox, which is an American maker, who had made the first 3 bassoons I played on was also black. And I ordered it that way because I wanted a black one. And then this is my first, it's the first Heckel bassoon I bought. And Heckel is a company in Germany that makes kind of the Harley Davidson of bassoons.
When you say that,
to
what do you
fit
mean?
your rock and roll.
Like top notch.
Yeah, and it's gonna get that special sound, right? So that's it.
And so I see a lot of metal, there's a lot of wood here.
Yes.
Is this thing heavy?
It's heavy. This is about 16 pounds. So I'm kind of resting it up against myself, cramped up and awkward.
You never play standing, obviously.
Not usually. I mean, they do make harnesses and neck straps, but especially the second bassoon, you do a lot of sitting.
Can we move that chair over here so
Sure,
that
yeah.
Joe can videotape you better this time?
What's cool about the bassoon, and unlike any, no other instrument has it, is it has a seat strap, which is fun. Basically, you can sit, and if you rest the instrument just so, it balances everything, which is really nice. No hands. Look, Mom. No hands. So yeah, ideally the instrument just comes right to you, just like that.
You keep trying to play this thing and nothing is coming out.
I was doing my helicopter impression.
Now the most important part, you can't really make any music unless you've got
And then you got the
reed.
bassoon reed.
The question is, what happens to the spit?
What happens to the spit? That's a good question.
That's an elegant question.
You're a horn player. Well, you gotta
It's
get rid of it.
it's true. It is. We are much more elegant than the horn players
imagine.
and the oboe players and the flute players and the clarinet players, because they all play, and the spit happens, right? And so it's dripping into the instrument and just dripping. It's disgusting. It drips right onto the floor, right in front of them. No control about it, right? But the bassoon players, we collect it here on the bottom of our instrument, and we dispose of it where we want to, later,
Discreetly.
discreetly, politely. Right? So what happens to the spit? It goes down here. Basically, it rests in the U-tube. And it's a good question, actually, because the bassoon lasts for so long because the whole right side of the instrument is lined with a hard rubber or plastic. And you'll notice that these tone holes are lined with sterling silver, what we call water tubes. They could have been called spit tubes. But they basically protect the wood so that none of the wood is in contact with spit, water, condensation. And that happens on the whole right side of the instrument, and then it comes around this little bend on the bottom, and in fact, I can show that to you. I'm being stingy. That's the U-tube right there. And it's brass up until about this point, and then the whole left side of the bassoon, dismount that awkward position. The whole left side is wood, so that it can kind of resonate and make that sound. But because we do that, the instrument never warps or rots, and so you can play an instrument for a long, long time. And the wood kind of develops like it does in a string instrument a little bit. So the sound kind of gets more interesting and more characterful as it gets older. So this bassoon was made in 1972, and if this were a clarinet, it would sound terrible, right? Because it'd be warped and it'd be junk at this point. Out of tune.
Because there's no lining in a clarinet like there is.
So in a clarinet, the moisture would cause the instrument to warp, and so it'd be out of tune, and it wouldn't be good.
Oboists,
same
clarinetists,
thing.
they replace their instruments every,
All the time.
5, 6 years?
Right, yeah.
How long? So yours has been going strong since 1972.
That's right, 44 years.
Good value for
That's good value, but they're very expensive. I bought this when I was still in college for $28,000, and it's insured now for $40,000. So they're going up in value. So expensive.
Invest in bassoons.
That's right. Put your money in bassoons. Sure.
Wait, the question was, does the sound change over time as the bassoon ages?
Yeah, it develops. So on a new instrument, it won't be quite as interesting, I think, is the idea, as a more broken-in instrument will sound. That's hard to answer. Yeah, I would like to think so. That the way it's broken in, is that the question? Yeah, I think the way that it's broken in makes a difference. Certainly really great players' instruments are desirable, not only because they've owned them, but maybe because they play a little better. I don't know.
Can we hear this Harley
Yeah,
Davidson now,
sure.
please?
So the real changer is the reed, and everybody's reeds are made a little bit differently, and I'm not sure this is the best reed, but it's how I make reeds. And what's important about the reeds is that they crow, or that they vibrate. So that's really what you're hearing.
Did you all
Just
hear
kinda
that murder of crows as you came into
murder
the...
of crows.
It was crazy out there. There was, I mean,
missed
like a
it.
huge flock of crows out there.
Okay.
That's a double reed.
That's a double reed. Yeah, bassoon and oboe, just like my band director. Okay. So that's the bassoon. That's the lowest note on the bassoon, low B flat. And it's got a very big range, actually. I shouldn't quote the size of the range of other instruments, but I think the bassoon is generally larger than the other woodwind instruments. And the contrabassoon, which is the auxiliary that goes to the bassoon, you'll see Evan, our contra player and assistant principal bassoon player, who sits left to me often, sometimes right of me, will have a contrabassoon, and that goes a whole octave lower, which is basically the bottom of the piano range, so down to low B flat. And they make contrabassoons that go down to low A, and they're even bigger. They have kind of a bigger piece over the top. I don't know how to describe it. Big piece of wood. So it's pretty cool, yeah.
It's one of my favorite sounds in the orchestra. It's so distinctive, and I can imagine why one would fall in love with that. It must be fun to practice even.
It is. It's a really cool instrument, and I think especially for younger players who are trying to pick something. I mean, it's so interesting.
And
right?
individual and distinctive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have literally like maybe 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay.
Do you want to do a little read chat? I mean,
Sure.
we talked.
I'm happy to answer questions, or what did you think was interesting about the reads? I'm happy
Well,
to.
the last night's audience went nuts for the reads.
Okay, we got a question over here.
What's the question?
There was an ebony finish on the instrument.
Sure.
You mentioned there's an ebony finish on the instrument. What is the wood?
It's maple.
It is maple.
It is maple, yeah. Yeah.
Does anybody have? Oh.
Given your particular instrument, which piece is the most fun to play on your instrument?
Oh, that's a good question. We really enjoy playing all kinds of different music and pieces. It seems like the orchestras have gotten bigger and bigger as time has gone on, and the bassoon is not a particularly loud instrument, so it's really the earlier pieces, more classical music, earlier romantic, where you hear lots of big bassoon solos. You know, the clarinet got so popular that they kind of took a lot of our good stuff.
You said that with a bit of derision.
Well,
I sing Bach, and I can sing a low B flat.
oh,
Anybody have any other questions?
It magnifies the bass in the Bach.
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm very partial to listening to it because I'm back in that section.
Sure.
And the continuo will very often.
I've got one more question for you here, Adam.
Cool.
In all the hundreds of pieces you play during a year, when do you find time to practice and all the teaching? When do you practice?
Well, it's hard. I like to practice at the beginning of the day, so I practiced for a couple hours this morning. You know, yeah. It's in Omaha, half the orchestra was full-time and half the orchestra was part-time, but it meant that the rehearsals for anything substantial, you know, with a big orchestra, meant they had to be at night at 7. And so it meant you had all day to practice. It was really easy. So it's harder here, you know, where you work in the morning and in the afternoon, and then to go home and practice afterwards and teach and stuff. That's tough. But
I don't want people to leave here
Squeeze
thinking
it
that
in.
all you do is teach and practice and play. I mean, do you do things for fun? You must have,
yeah.
you know, free time in which what do you do?
I like to ride my bike. I ride my bike all over Portland, and I think of myself as a tennis player, although I don't play tennis very often. It rains here too much. But yeah, I do lots of fun things like that.
Any like weird Portlandy
I like
things?
Weird Portlandy things. Drink beer. That's not very weird though. That's very normal. I like to play bridge.
Do you really?
Yeah, I play bridge online a little bit. I find that to be a fun game. I don't know. What
Bridge.
else?
My parents have tried to teach me bridge for ages.
Yeah.
Will you give me a lesson?
I'll give you a lesson.
Okay,
Yeah,
fantastic.
you
And a
can be my
bassoon
bridge
lesson
partner.
too?
Sure.
Awesome.
Did you have any questions about did you want me to talk about any of the reed making?
We're out of time now.
Okay, sorry.
If you have questions about bassoon reeds, believe me, it's a scintillating 30-minute conversation we had right here yesterday. It's posted on the All Classical Portland website. I mean, I kid you not. We somehow took up 30 full minutes
You
talking
said
about bassoon
the time
reeds.
was up, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe that I
We all
wasted
learned a
everybody's
lot.
time talking about reeds.
And will you stick around for just a couple of minutes if
Yeah,
people want to chat with you?
absolutely.
Okay. This is Adam Trussell, the second bassoonist of the Oregon Symphony. I'm Christa Wessel. Thank you for coming tonight. You're in store for a great concert.